Hello there, you're welcome again to Kolavari Creativity Series, and this is a podcast that is focused on exploring the world of creativity and innovation. This is our very first episode, and I'm sure you can hear the excitement in my voice. I'm very, very excited because from the introductory episode, I think my appetite was opened up to understand what creativity is about. Before I go ahead, I am Zika, and I will be facilitating this podcast series. I think in the introductory episode we basically talked about creativity not being a luxury and the fact that it has become a very necessary skill that we need to have in this day and age. And I'm joined with the managing consultant of Kolavari Solutions. Hi, Azeez Omoso.
Hi, Zika. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well,
That's
thank
good.
you. I also have the IT consultant, Joseph.
Hi, Zika.
Hello.
Well done.
Okay, so they are both here to educate us more on how we can harness our creativity. I think I learned the last time that creativity is inside of everyone. So they're going to be taking us step by step to understand what this is and basically simplify the fact that I am creative and I can use it. Yes, I can be creative and be innovative.
You are creative.
So, I am creative, yeah. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. So Azeez, do you want to tell us the story behind Kolavari Creativity Series?
Before we do that, I just want to let the listeners know what they can benefit from today's episode.
Oh, okay, great.
And it's very important.
Yeah.
I'm also excited. And I've always felt that every time people talk about creativity, it comes at a very high level that might not be relatable or usable.
Yeah.
So I'll use the example of a transformer.
Okay.
Electricity is transmitted at a very high voltage.
Okay.
At that voltage, it cannot be used in our homes. You need a step-down transformer to take it to a voltage that can be used in our homes.
Yeah.
So what we intend to achieve in this episode is really take creativity to a level that people can relate with it and they can understand and they can use it. So that's why I'm excited.
Yeah,
Okay?
true. Yeah.
So for me, the journey started in 2015.
Oh.
But I would say the turning point came in 2017 after I attended the training at Columbia Business School on creativity and innovation.
Okay.
At the end of the training, we were told to go back and teach our colleagues.
Okay.
Fortunately for me, in my company at that time, we had an initiative that allowed me to do this.
Oh.
So between 2017 and 2018, I facilitated several sessions that had over 100 people attending. And the impact was tremendous. And it left something behind in my mind that I felt that this was something that we could continue. So this podcast is really just a continuation of that. Go back and teach others.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Nice. That's amazing. So why is creativity so important? Because for you to be able to make a podcast of it, it has to be something that is very important. So why do you have that quest to let people know about creativity?
Personally, I believe creativity skills keeps us relevant and useful in a fast-changing world.
Yeah.
Now, our paradigms have been shaped by all sorts of information or beliefs over the years.
True.
And this is one of the things that I believe we can help address with this series. I'll give a very simple example. You would have heard of people studying creative arts, right?
Yeah, true. Yes.
So do we assume that there is uncreative arts?
Well, that kind of is the implication.
So over a period of time, people have been made to believe that there are some people who are creative
And some
and
people,
there are some people who are not creative.
Mm.
Now, what we want to try and do with this podcast series is to let everybody know that every human being is designed to be creative. We are all creative. If you look at creativity from the point of view of coming up with new ideas, every human being, every organization needs new ideas.
Yeah. True. I see you trying to say something, Joseph.
Yes, I think to further drive home that point on creativity that Azeez has mentioned, the World Economic Forum reports for 2018 and 2020 have actually shown that creativity and innovation are the top 5 most in demand skills.
Wow.
And so between now and 2025, they will be in very high demand across the world. And I think it's really important that anybody needs to know that if you are going into any role, you have to have creativity on your mind and in your portfolio, basically.
So if we don't become creative, our degrees or jobs or whatever might not be relevant in the future to come. Amazing.
That's one way. Second way of looking at it, those jobs might be there,
but they would demand.
You will not be able to perform the jobs because of the requirements of that particular job.
I really look forward to this. Okay, so now I think we have some context to this. I personally would like to know what creativity and innovation means, because you have explained, yes, how it came about. So what exactly is creativity?
Creativity means coming up with new ideas that are of value. So a new idea that offers value.
Creativity is a new idea that offers value.
The process of coming up with new ideas that offers
values. Okay, so what is innovation? Okay,
I want to explain further on that.
Okay.
There are two things that make an idea creative. The first is originality. By originality, we mean something that is unique, something that is different from the norm. So it's original. Okay? And the second thing is usefulness. So for an idea to be creative, it must be original
and useful.
And it must be useful.
Okay.
There's no point coming up with an original idea that is not useful. It's of no value. So that's creativity. Now, innovation means implementing creative ideas. That's what it simply means. So you have an idea that is new and offers value. Hey, we don't even know whether it offers value until you implement it.
That's true.
So innovation is about implementing a creative idea.
So creativity is coming up with ideas that are original and offer value, which is seen in the execution, and that is innovation.
Spot on.
Great. So what is the difference between that and invention? Because I think invention is also coming up with ideas, I guess. I don't know. So what is the difference? What is invention then?
The first time you come up with an idea and it's implemented, that is an invention.
Oh.
So there was the first time the car was invented.
Yeah.
Anything you do after that initial creation, it's not an invention.
It can be
creative, but it's not an invention. So the first time you come up with an idea, whether it's with regards to a product, a service,
that's
a
invention.
process, that is an invention. The first time, that's an invention.
Okay, so I represent the typical listeners.
That's fine.
Let me break it down. So, like the example you used about electricity. So when electricity was like the first time it was heard of, it was an invention.
And it was implemented. Yeah, it was an invention. Yeah.
Okay. But that process of, bringing in the transformer was a creative idea of some sort.
Yeah, so the first time electricity ever came into being and that it was implemented and we could derive value from it, it was an invention.
Yeah.
Since then, there's been several things that have been done with regards to electricity that could be creative, but they are not inventing electricity anymore.
True. Great. That's amazing. So I'm sure, or I'm thinking that there should be you mentioned earlier actually, I said creativity and you said the process of creating. So I feel like there is a process to being creative. So how does this process occur? How does it happen? Or, I'm sitting here, I'm learning about creativity. Does that automatically mean that I am creative and I can begin to spit out ideas? Or how does it happen?
We would offer a very simple explanation.
Okay.
There are several explanations out there.
Okay.
If you pick up any book, several explanations, but we'll go with a very simple explanation. We will use the concept of the elements of fire to understand how creativity happens.
Okay.
Now for fire, yes.
Okay.
For fire, you need three things. You need fuel.
Yeah.
You need air.
Yes.
And you need a source of heat that causes the spark.
Yeah.
So we want to use that concept to understand how creativity can happen. Okay. So you also need a fuel for creativity. The fuel you need for creativity is an understanding of concepts in a field or a domain or a subject. We all are in a field or subject today, or everybody.
Yeah.
You must understand the concepts that are behind that particular field. That's the first thing.
That's the feel.
That's the field.
Okay.
This is what I mean. Everything you see, everything you touch, everything you feel today is an application of a concept. It's an application of people's thoughts. Now, for you to be creative, you cannot start from what has been applied. You have to go back to the concepts and the thoughts behind that application.
Yeah.
It is from that point that you can create and recreate. So that's the first thing that you require in creativity. You have to understand concepts in a field or in a domain or in a subject.
Okay.
Second thing
Yeah.
is air. By air, I mean the prevailing conditions. Okay. In this, I have segmented it into two. The first thing that you require for you to be creative after the understanding of concepts, every individual must have at the back of their mind an issue, a topic, a subject, and something that is making them curious about that field. So we could say something bugging them, something at the top of their mind that they are interested in solving, they are interested in discovering. It must be at the top of your mind in your field. That's the first part.
Okay.
Now, the second part under air is you must have an environment. You must be in an environment that allows you to pursue that curiosity, that discovery. Something in your environment must be encouraging you to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's very
So we have the first is air. Is fuel, which is understanding of
the
concepts. Second thing, there are two parts to it. First one is you must have an issue, an idea, a problem you are looking at that is bugging you that you want to solve in that field.
Okay.
Part two of air is that you must have an environment that encourages you to actually pursue trying to solve that particular problem.
Okay, so what about heat? You mentioned three things.
The third thing is the spark.
Okay,
the spark or heat.
Source of heat.
Source of heat.
Okay.
And there are several explanations of how this happens. But first and foremost, we need to understand that our brains on their own are capable of generating new ideas. When we are in a state of what I call productive boredom, when we are not boredom, yes, when we are not so focused on a particular task, our brains on their own are always generating new ideas. Okay. Now, we also come up with new ideas when we find ourselves faced with constraints or challenges.
Yeah, true.
Anything that allows us to see things differently is an opportunity for us to get
creative.
a spark. And that spark can start a thinking process that allows us to solve what's been bothering us in a particular field. Also, people who encounter challenges or problems differently from how they have been encountering those problems, it's also a point for a spark. So you find out that people who find themselves in different fields from where they currently are, that difference can cause a spark to happen.
Because they're already curious about wanting to do something in that field because they're not used to it.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, so let me break it down, or let me say what I understand to be sure. So to be creative, there are a number of factors, and the first thing is I have to have an understanding of concepts in a particular, like you said, I'm in a field. I have to have an understanding about
in the media field, you have to understand the concepts behind whatever you're doing.
Not just, how things are done, but understanding the concept behind
the thoughts behind
the
what
why
is done.
Behind those things that are done.
Yes.
And then there has to be an issue on the top of my mind.
You as an individual would have something that you are curious about. You want to find out. There's a problem that you want to solve.
I can't just be vague and expect to be creative. There has to be something
that's driving, something that's motivating you, something that you're trying to solve.
And then there's the environment that helps my curiosity.
That encourages you
that
to be
encourages, yes, exactly. That encourages that curiosity, that issue that is bugging me. Okay, and then lastly, the spark. And you said this comes from seeing things differently.
Yes.
Right? Please, I think you should shed more light on that.
Our brains on their own are capable of generating new ideas. Okay, they are capable. What helps our brains to do that is what can be referred to as productive boredom. Meaning you are not too focused on a particular task. Your mind, like they say, can wander, and your brain begin to put things together, and you come up with new ideas. And if you've ever read people who have come up with ideas or new inventions, they will tell you, I was taking a shower, I was taking a walk, I was taking my dog on a walk.
Yeah.
You see,
Like
those activities they seem mundane, but what happens is that because you're not focused on a particular task, your brain becomes very creative. It opens up. It's all the things you've thought about. Your brains begin to combine and recombine and see how it can bring those things to fruition. And in such a circumstance, you can come up with a creative idea. That's one. Two, you can encounter a challenge, a problem, a resistance, a restraint that forces you to think differently.
Yeah, that part.
That can cause a spark.
Yeah.
Or you could just be reading something and something interesting happens that you can link back to the problem that you have been trying to solve. That can cause a spark. There are several reasons for the spark to happen, but I think the way you put it for me, I think is very clear. Something that allows you to think differently from the norm can cause a spark.
Amazing. This is really amazing. So I'm going to ask you to give us an example so that it's clearer. But before we do that, we have to go on a quick break. We would like to hear from our sponsors and we will be right back.
Colavera Solutions is a people-focused human resources firm based in Nigeria.
My name is Shea Majaro. Engaging with Azeez and the Colavera Solutions team has helped me understand better the business world and how to navigate my career.
Working at Colavera Solutions has been very enriching. I am a lot more appreciative of the individual value everyone brings to the team.
I was actually blown away as to how detailed, organized, transparent his process was. Hello, my name is Soba Fubara Abraham. I work with Synergy Capital, manages a private equity firm.
To learn more about Colavera Solutions, visit our website at www.colaverasolutions.com. Follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Colavera Solutions.
Okay, we are back. This has been very interesting. I don't want to waste our time by going back, but we'll definitely give a summary at the end of this. So Azeez, can you give us an example to break this down, basically? An example, yeah.
That's fine. So let's use the example of using fire to explain creativity.
Okay.
We didn't read it in any book. Neither did we hear somebody talk about it. So we could say it's an original idea that is useful, that offers value. So we could use that as an example. Is that fine?
Yes.
Okay.
That is amazing.
Okay.
That is very amazing.
I think the spark. So I will start from how the spark came about. Then I'll walk backwards.
Okay.
I was listening to a new podcast called Spark and Fire that focuses on creativity.
Okay.
And the idea hit me, and it was like, why can we not use the elements of fire to explain creativity? So we decided to walk backwards. So we said, if the spark is the thing that hits you, that makes you see things differently, how can we explain creativity using the other parts of creativity? So what we decided to do was, starting from the spark, we just walked backwards to explain creativity using the elements of fire, which is your fuel, air, and the spark. Now, you must understand that what the podcast that I listened to did to us was just create a spark. Point one, which is understanding of concepts of creativity, we already had that in place. Point two, because of this podcast, we were challenged to explain creativity using very simple terms, using very simple example. So we were searching, we were inquiring, we were looking for simple ways of explaining creativity. So when I listened to that podcast, Spark and Fire, that ignited a spark in me. And we said, why can we not use that idea of a fire to explain creativity?
You know what's most amazing for me? The fact that the example is very original and is relatable, because you already, like you said, you have the understanding of creativity to some extent. I mean, you went to seminars and stuff, and you want to have a podcast, you want to create a podcast, you want people to know about this. That's already like, you're curious, you want to. And then there was that environment, you started to listen to podcasts, you started to read books, you started to, and then when you were listening randomly to a podcast one day, that happened.
The spark happened.
And then you can now use the example of fire that I can understand.
Exactly.
That is amazing. That is so. If you explain this and it's this simple, why then does it appear to be very difficult? Why does creativity seem like it's a very mysterious thing?
From our views, I think there are two reasons why creativity appears difficult or mysterious.
Okay.
One, as humans, we are more inclined towards conformity than towards dissonance or discordance.
Okay, can you explain that, please?
I would explain.
Okay.
Now, if you go back to the definition of creativity, it says coming up with a new idea or a different idea. Different from what? Different from the norm. Different from what conforms.
True.
So as an individual, to be creative, you must be willing to embrace discordance or dissension, not in a negative way. In terms of willing to see things differently. Okay? People who are creative are comfortable in that space of not being conformed to a particular way of to the norm. Simply put. So that's one. The second reason why I think creativity also appears difficult is this. The prevailing environment that fosters creativity has to be abnormal. Has to be abnormal, because to be creative means to think differently. You can't think.
You can't be in the normal setting that you are used to doing things
and think differently.
True.
But when you look all around us, everything around us is normal.
We're used to that.
So an environment that is abnormal encourages creativity. But people do not like abnormal environments. People typically run away from abnormal environments. People prefer to remain in a normal environment. And that's why I think it's creative. What I would like people to take out of this is that don't put so much emphasis on intellectual power and intellectual prowess. You understand? Irrespective of where you place yourself in that spectrum, you are creative. You are capable of generating new ideas that offer value.
I think that's why when you were explaining how creativity comes, and the first thing you mentioned is understanding the concepts. I think that was very, very, very interesting for me, because once the understanding of concepts of something is known, then you can explore.
Exactly. You can begin to, you can combine things.
Exactly,
you can take this out. You can introduce something new.
So you're still not going outside of, that subject or that field. You are just exploring beyond what is the norm.
At that point in time.
In that point.
Do you know what is the norm today? 30, 40 years ago was not the norm.
Normal. It was somebody's creative idea, probably.
Pre-COVID.
With masks.
Working in the office was the norm. Now, true. Most people you discuss with work from home.
Remotely. And even wearing a mask.
Exactly.
True. This is very interesting. Okay.
If I may add, just research has shown that people who find themselves in fields outside of their trainings, people who read a lot, okay, people whose developmental pathways have been different from the norm tend to be more creative. We like to admire people like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and all the other innovators. But if you really look at their developmental pathways, it's been different from the norm.
It didn't seem like the normal. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Very true. I don't want you to give us all the juice in this episode. I think
there's a lot more. There's a lot more of that.
This is mind blowing and it's amazing. It's very exciting knowing that we can be more if we allow it.
Yes, we can.
We can be more. Beating the norm and everything that is very interesting. Okay, so let's move on. I think I would like you guys to give us like examples of people, like actual normal ordinary people.
Human beings,
yes,
like us.
human beings that have been creative, because I'm sure somebody somewhere will be saying, well, I mean, but if you tell us some people, actual real ordinary people that have been creative, then I think it will drive home.
So we'll look at two examples. I
Okay.
will speak about Dick Frosby.
Okay.
Joseph will speak about Richard Montanes, right? Okay.
Oh, okay.
So before I talk about Dick Frosby, I want to ask you, Zika, what is your favorite Olympic moment?
Olympic. I mean, it will be when Nigeria won gold. I think that was in Atlanta '96.
How old were you then?
Yes, I was very young, but then I heard it's my country, Nigeria. So
I mean, you're right. I think
Yeah.
for every Nigerian, that's a special moment.
Very special.
Yeah.
But for somebody who's interested in creativity like I am, I have a different moment.
Okay.
And it was in 1968. Don't
Okay.
ask me if I was born then. It was in 1968 Olympic Games,
Okay.
Mexico.
Okay.
And a guy called Dick Frosby won
Okay.
the Olympic gold medal,
Okay.
in a high jump event.
Okay.
Now, the reason why it was special was that style of jumping he used in winning the gold medal, he invented it.
Oh.
And today, it is named after him. It's called the Frosby flop,
Oh.
where you jump backwards. That was not the prevalent
At the time.
at that time. But today, it is the most prevalent style of jumping. Okay. Now, Frosby journey didn't start there. It started way back in his high school. Okay. He was a member of his high jump team. And Frosby was lousy at the straddle. The straddle was the dominant technique at that time.
Okay.
Okay. He had to go back to using the scissors so that he could meet the cutoff for his team. So even though he did that, he kept on. He was curious. He felt he could jump better. He was pushing himself, and he started working on the backward technique. By the time he got to university, he started perfecting that style.
Oh.
But he met a lot of resistance. Even his coach wanted him to revert to the straddle, but he persevered. Okay, and he persevered until he came up with what we now call the Frosby flop. You understand? Initially, it seemed awkward, but
it was different.
But he persevered. But this was interesting about Dick Frosby. Frosby was never an outstanding athlete. Yes, he won the Olympic gold medal, but he never broke any world record. In fact, people copied Frosby
And
they
did better.
jumped higher than Dick Frosby.
Wow.
Dick Frosby was just an
Ordinary person.
human like me and you who had an idea and he persevered with that idea.
That's
Very interesting
amazing.
story.
That's amazing.
Joseph,
Yeah, I think that Fosbury story is very amazing.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't extra special.
Yeah,
He just wanted to solve an issue and he understood the basics and that idea came. And I think it's pretty much the same thing for Richard Montanes. He was a Latino, in America. Had a background of low-paying jobs, and he then became a janitor at Frito-Lay in the mid-1980s.
Okay.
So at that point, there was a point, the company hit some, financial hard times, and the CEO trying to motivate everyone in the company, sent out a video, that everyone should participate in whatever way they could. And during that period, during one of his work shifts, he noticed that among the snacks that, Frito-Lay produced, there was none that, catered to the needs of Mexicans or Latino people, because, they love chili. They love a lot of pepper and spices. So that was when he came up with the idea that, he could dust some of the current, Frito-Lay brands with pepper, with chili. And he worked with his wife and, sampled it with, his family and his extended family. And they fell in love with it. And that was when he literally picked up the phone and called the CEO.
Amazing.
There were a lot of branches.
resistance.
That's already breaking the
yes,
usual.
exactly.
Why should the janitor call the CEO of the company?
CEO directly. He didn't really know those rules.
So he was going against the norm.
Yes. And the CEO was actually receptive and said he was going to come over and he should prepare a presentation for him. And pretty much the CEO came in with other high-ranking members of the company, sampled the idea, and it took off. They were able to come out of financial hard times, and eventually the janitor became like a VP within the company.
Wow.
And I think with the concepts we've learned today, it kind of pretty much covers the fact that he understood this is like a domain area. The Mexicans, we love
For
chili.
him,
Yes, for him, that was the domain area. He understood that. I know there was an environment that could move a lot of things. And then finally that that, like you said, that idea that let me solve this particular problem before the spark came. And he made some moves. He fought some battles,
broke the norm,
and eventually became better for himself and created something that was useful.
Very interesting.
That's
story.
amazing. That is very, very amazing.
Yeah.
If I know that if we go on and on and on, this conversation is getting really interesting. We won't stop, but we have to keep some of the juice for other episodes. Okay, so do you have any final words before we go?
We have some tips.
Okay.
Practical tips. Most of the tips are for teams, because I think creativity fosters better in team settings. Okay, just practical tips any team can apply.
Okay.
The first tip is, I think team members should be given targets for breaking rules. Sounds strange, but we want people to think differently. So give team members targets for achieving results, but also give them targets for breaking rules. That's one. I also think that companies or individuals should deliberately introduce abnormalities into their systems and their processes. I'll give a very simple example. The typical work hour is an 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, whatever. Nobody says that you could say, you know what, I'm going to have 2 work schedules. Some set of people work 8 to 3, some set of people work 4 to 11. Why? I want an abnormality in my system. People will think differently.
That'd
people
be
will
nice.
work differently.
Yeah.
Just introduce an abnormality in the system. It creates it fosters creativity. I would also say team leaders and managers should try to deliberately diversify their teams. You know why?
Okay.
Diversity matched with good leadership increases creativity. Does. I would also say encourage your team members to learn outside their areas of operations. If you're in finance, know more about sales. If you're in sales, know more about finance. It's very important.
True.
I would also say require that team members defend their current practices. What we are trying to address is the issue of this is how we do it here. No, we don't want that. We want the best way. The best way does not mean the current way.
There can be other ways.
Yes.
True.
I would also say encourage cross-functional teams to deliver on projects.
Okay.
People from different teams working together to deliver on the project.
Nice.
And I would also say practice productive boredom. Very, very good.
Yeah, I think that phrase is going to stick in my head. Productive boredom. Wow, it's been amazing. I've learned so much, and I think I'll just quickly share some of the things I've learned. I think first, and now has become basic in my head, is the fact that I am creative.
You are designed to be creative.
I am designed to be creative. Everybody is designed to be creative.
Everybody.
And the fact that it has become a very necessary skill, we have to bring out that creativity in us. And I think the conditions for creativity was the highlight for me. The fact that there has to be an understanding of a concept or field or domain. There has to be the basic understanding.
Everybody currently works in a domain or a field,
but we just apply, we just do. We actually don't really understand
what we do,
what we are doing exactly. So I think to start off that process of creativity, there has to be an understanding,
a willingness to understand the concepts behind the field that you're working in.
Yeah, true. There has to be that, and there has to be something on the top of my mind that I want to address, or something I'm curious about, something I want to change, something I want to do, and creating that environment that helps that curiosity thrive. Then being productively bored. That's
reading outside your field.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe when you encounter situations that seem difficult, just allowing the brain generate new ideas. Then we're talking about creativity.
You're right.
I think this has been amazing. This has been very, very interesting. I've learned a lot, and I cannot wait for the second episode and every episode afterwards. Please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast directory. We're available. The podcast is available on iTunes, Deezer, Google Podcast, Stitcher, and Audible. I think you can also read the transcript of all our episodes on our website at colavaresolutions.com, and also follow us on Instagram at colavaresolutions. This has been very, very interesting.
And on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
Okay, Colavare Solutions. Great. Okay. Oh, we finally come to the end of this episode. I hope you learned something. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure I represent a lot of people outside that have learned so much. So yeah, we'll be going now. But before we go, this podcast, we want you to know, is produced by Joshua Praise, and the poster design is by Faith Folari and Joseph Okafor, and the theme music is an original by Justo Christos. Thank you very much for listening, and see you on the next episode. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.